Your membership at the Idea Exchange Old Post Office Makerspace allows you access to a variety of innovative creative technology. This tutorial is part 2 of explaining how to use the laser cutter to engrave on round glass. This video will concentrate on setting your design up using CorelDRAW, sending it to job control, and ultimately starting the engraving. If you have not watched part 1 and 3 of how to use the laser cutter, we recommend watching that now. This video assumes you understand how to set up the CorelDRAW file and are comfortable using job control. After loading CorelDRAW, set your artboard to roughly the perimeter size that you want your final engraving to be. To do this, grab a measuring tape and measure both the height and width of the final graphic you'd like on the glass. While you have your measuring tape out, you should also measure the diameter of the glass and jot that down as we will need that information a little later on. Input your calculated height and width dimensions into the artboard now. Once you've set up your artboard, it's time to import your graphic. Regardless of whether it is a text or a logo, you'll want only black and white in your graphic. The laser does not etch gradient shades of gray on glass very well. Therefore, it is best only to have pure black and pure white. In our case, we will engrave a script name on our glass. Resize your graphic now to fit in your artboard. Our artboard is set to be 3 inches wide and 1.5 inches tall. You'll want to make your artboard as tight as possible to the graphic with little border space. To do this, highlight your text or graphic and look at its dimensions. In our case, the graphic dimensions are 2.985 inches wide and 1.317 inches tall. Just add a touch to act as a border, and alter your artboard dimensions if needed. Again, the artboard is 3 inches wide and 1.5 inches tall. Once you are ready and everything looks good, select File, Print. Select the Trotec engraver from the drop-down menu, and as usual, select the wheel cog to bring up the additional settings menu. The first thing we need to tell the laser is that we are using the rotary attachment. Click here to tick off Rotary Attachment. You will notice the normal width and height section has changed to circumference and height. Under the height section, type in the height that you have set your artboard to, not the graphic. In our case, that is 1.5 inches. Next, we will type the diameter of the glass we jotted down here, in our case, 3 inches, and then the circumference will automatically be filled in. Under Material Settings, change this drop-down to Glass, and underneath that, choose Drink Glass V2. To double-check the settings, the power should read 100, and the speed should read 40. Change your halftone to black and white, and then select the JC Job Control button. We are now done on this page. Navigate to the Layout tab at the top of the print settings. Select the button for Reposition Artwork to, and selecting the drop-down to the right, change that to Right Center. Hit the Print button. Just like how you saw in the How to Use the Laser Cutter video series, Job Control will now automatically open if it's not open already. You will see the job appear in the Job Queue area. Drag the job to anywhere on the plate and let go. Press the USB button so the laser cutter and the computer can communicate with one another. You will notice a few different things from what you may be used to seeing. First, you'll see the rotary attachment image on the background of the plate. This is simply telling you that the rotary attachment is installed. Additionally, the job itself will be long and skinny. Select the eyeball symbol to see the contents of the job. At this point, we can turn our attention to the laser cutter for a moment. Remove the laser nozzle by turning it clockwise and set aside. Next, use the X-axis buttons to get it roughly centered on the X-axis of your glass and where you plan to etch. It doesn't have to be perfect at this time. Next, just like leveling the bed normally, hang the focus tool on the laser housing and use the Z-axis buttons to raise the bed and focus the laser. Once focused, use the X-axis button again to move the entire length of the glass and ensure you have clearance on both the concave and convex rotary attachment pieces. Now, using the red dot as a guide, use the X-axis buttons to position the red dot on the glass to where you want the highest part of your graphic to go. In other words, you want the red dot to be at the top of your graphic, so nothing will get etched higher than that. For this graphic, that point would be here. Next, go back to Job Control and drag the job so that the left edge of the job is lining up with the cursor. This is why it was important to make our artboard as tight to the graphic as possible. You can use the Y-axis button to run along the left edge and make sure you are positioned correctly and no part of the graphic is going higher than the cursor. You can now use the X-axis buttons again to move the cursor in Job Control to go from the top to the bottom of your graphic to make sure it will engrave where you want it to. You are basically watching the cursor in Job Control to outline the top and bottom of your job, and simultaneously looking at the red dot on the glass to make sure it is etching where you want it to etch. In our case, this is where the extreme top of the graphic will go, and this is where the extreme bottom of the graphic will go. Since we are using a perfectly symmetrical and cylindrical glass, we are only concerned about the X-axis, which represents the top and bottom of our graphic. At this time, if you had to take the glass out to physically reposition it, make sure to always refocus afterwards. It is unlikely that you put it back in perfectly horizontal and will likely require refocusing. Now we are ready to start our engraving. Close the lid and hit the play button. The rotary attachment will rotate the glass to the start of the graphic and begin etching your glass. Thank you for watching Part 2 explaining how to use the laser cutter to engrave on round glass. We hope to see you soon!